Coming up on Frontiers, the Alaska National Guard, a long history with deep roots, but in recent years it's seen a shrinking footprint in rural Alaska.
A lot of history, a lot of knowledge, a lot of service that's been performed out here, and it would be wrong of us to let that slip away.
After losing ground in rural Alaska, scandals have tarnished its legacy. So how will the Alaska National Guard reinvent itself?
Sponsorship for Frontiers with Rhonda McBride is provided by Kupik Corporation and Spinard Builders Supply. Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program and Happy New Year. Well, this week we visit an old frontier that is suddenly a new frontier. Since World War II, during the territorial days, the Guard has loomed large in rural Alaska. Citizen soldiers could be counted on to respond to emergencies and protect their communities. There were also jobs, education, and other opportunities. But since its heyday in the 1980s, the Alaska National Guard is a shadow of what it used to be. And it's not an easy fix, but as KTVA's Bonnie Bowman shows us, the Guard and Native organizations are teaming up to rebuild this legacy of service.
After active duty Army service, Jack Beaver came home to Bethel and a traditional way of life. But his military career wasn't over. The National Guard soon came calling.
So I accepted for only a year. So that was our adventure.
1 year of full-time Guard service turned into 22 years serving part-time, a true citizen soldier.
Serving your community. That's what we did.
The role of Guardsman started in World War II, when the Army relied on the knowledge of Native Alaskans to patrol the state's vulnerable western flank. The Territorial Guard keeping an eye on their own backyards, using skills they'd learned from childhood. Their legacy is here, inscribed in the names on the memorial wall, many well known to Command Sergeant Major Richard Hildreth.
Quite a bit of the Bethel folks.
Hildreth grew up in Bethel, enlisted in the Guard here, and is now tasked with bringing it back to what it once was.
Some of these villages are rather small, but the volume of participation is actually huge.
There used to be 45 villages with armories. Now there are only 5 still in use. And from a height of 700 Guardsmen, today there are just 35.
Thaddeus J. Tickune, I worked for his son. His nephew enlisted, and his name was Thaddeus Tickune, and he works for us full-time in Anchorage.
Many agree the future of the Guard is here. That's why recruiter Sergeant First Class Robert Masterman spends a lot of time walking these halls. He says part of the reason kids aren't enlisting, they don't meet the physical requirements. Exercise equipment provided by the Guard is one way to change that.
I'm invested in the fitness of the students and the kids here in this community.
Sophomore Quinton Tulik says he's not sure about signing up for another reason.
A World War III might happen because our oil is running low.
Guardsmen used to stay in their home communities, but now they face overseas deployments just like active duty soldiers.
My mom basically crushed my dreams because, she said she didn't want me being in that stuff.
So the station has to turn.
A concerned parent is nothing new for Masterman. He regularly sits down with families, talking over what a future in the Guard really looks like.
The intent for us is to show that we are committed more than just, hey, put this uniform on, see you later.
Once in a good while, someone catches safe.
Back on the ice, Beaver says a strong National Guard is important for the community, especially the younger generations.
Job opportunities, college, school trains. There's good benefits.
It's a challenging future. While traditional skills once served rural Guard members well, they now have to adapt to the modern military mission. For Frontiers, I'm Bonnie Bowman.
With kids being an important part of the solution, Guard leaders say that they need to stay in school, stay clean, and stay out of trouble so that they can enlist in the Guard if they want to. The Alaska Federation of Natives at its October convention called for a return of the Guard to rural Alaska. AFN sees the Guard as key to creating more jobs and opportunities. When we come back, more on how the Guard plans to return to its rural roots and what is the Guard doing to repair damage from recent corruption scandals. We'll hear from the first woman commander of the Alaska National Guard, who says one of her top priorities is to restore a climate of trust and respect.
At Spinard Builder Supply, we know it takes a lot of ingredients to get it just right. That's why we have design centers in every store to personalize the most important rooms in your home. We'll help you select cabinets, faucets, and appliances that fit your style. So all you have to worry about is how much oregano goes in Mom's pasta sauce. Spinard Builder Supply. Building for life.
Now offering financing with no payments or interest for 12 months. Visit our design experts today at your local Spinard Builder Supply.
We have a story of 27 families that put 18 months of their lives into building a village, a home for themselves and their future. Our Inupiaq culture goes back thousands of years, carried by a strong sense of community. Our relationship with our natural surroundings is at the heart of our culture. By investing in future generations through development that is balanced with the love of our land, the Kupi Corporation brings together traditions of the past with visions of the future.
Even though there's an empty seat, our son will always have a place at our table.
Even though the holidays will never be the same, my sister will always have a place in our family.
Even though life goes on, my mom will always have a place in my heart.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Every day something's different, and I get really excited to report on stories in Alaska. I cover these stories. I need to be out there. I need to be experiencing all this stuff. I need to know. And Alaska is so big that you really have to get out there, because I think it's really important to meet people and cover their communities. There's just so many stories here that I could do a story for every day for the rest of my life and still have something new to tell in Alaska.
The Alaska National Guard is at a crossroads. Its rural mission is part of the fabric of our state's history, one that has slowly come unraveled along with the Guard's reputation. During the last election, when corruption charges came to light, we heard a lot about the need for the Guard to reinvent itself. And joining us to talk about how the Guard plans to do this, the Adjutant General of the National Guard, Laurie Hummel, who also serves as the State Commissioner for Military and Veteran Affairs. Thanks for being with us. You know, let's start where we left off with sort of the shrinking footprint of the Guard. Can you talk more about what that means in terms of numbers?
Right. Well, at its heyday, there were thousands who were serving in the Guard in rural Alaska. And the military overall is shrinking now, and it's been shrinking. The numbers have been declining for some time, and all components of the military are shrinking, and the National Guard has also had to...
It tracks with that.
Absolutely. And so,
but what about armories, in terms of armories? I mean, we used to have quite a few of them across the state.
Right, and the armories are still there, but there are really only about 17 that are in active use, because in order to actively use an armory, you have to have force structure that's assigned to it, and you have to have soldiers and airmen who are assigned there to drill there. So as the force structure contracts, and as we have fewer members of the National Guard around the state, and especially in rural communities, the armories have to be mothballed because they can't be used as active drilling locations anymore.
So let's talk a little bit about how this fell off the radar screen. Do you think all those multiple deployments were a factor in just kind of shifting the focus away from rural Alaska?
I think that the deployments definitely took a toll. We know that we had a lot of soldiers who deployed to Afghanistan from rural Alaska, and these were not short deployments. They were gone from their communities for 15 months. And so if you live a subsistence lifestyle, and if you're a major breadwinner for your home and you're taken away for 15 months, that's a big problem for a community.
Well, I want to turn to a question that we got from a viewer. This is from Arthur Barr Cleveland. He lives in Ambler, and he wants to know what the two biggest challenges are that face the men and women who serve in the National Guard, both here in Alaska and around the country.
Well, it's a great question. And I wouldn't have been able to answer it when I was on active duty, but now that I am a National Guardsman, I truly understand that our traditional National Guardsmen have two careers for the most part. They have their military duties that are on the weekends and 15 days of training a year, and the rest of the time they're doing other things, their primary vocation. Also, they face deployment, and it isn't a choice when we are called up into federal status and told to deploy as the Operational Ready Reserve. You have to go, and you never really know when that time will be. So these are two great challenges that face all National Guardsmen.
Well, I know that we used to really benefit before all the deployments of having this broad-based guard for rescues and things like this. And I understand that the governor has put about $2 million in his budget. He's hoping, that the legislature will give him that to expand the guard, put headquarters in Bethel for sort of a new version of the guard.
What we have asked for funding for is to increase the size of the Alaska State Defense Force. The Alaska State Defense Force is under the control of the governor. It's a state militia, and it doesn't have the same constraints that the federal National Guard does. And so eventually we would like to set conditions for more participation in rural Alaska in the Alaska National Guard. But for now, a great starting point is if we can increase the number of detachments of the Alaska State Defense Force out in the rural communities and increase participation in the Defense Force.
I could imagine that with the state facing a $3.5 billion budget deficit, that's a tall order to get new money for a new program.
It'll all be up to the legislature and how much they want to invest in this aspect of rural and community resilience and revitalization.
Well, the governor says he hopes that it'll be a national model. In what way?
Well, actually, there is a model that we are taking some best practices from, and that's our Canadian brothers who have the Canadian Ranger elements that are part of their reserve defense forces. And so our Alaska State Defense Force has an opportunity to model the great things that they do. The governor's absolutely right. No one else in the lower 48 certainly is doing this. And some states have state defense forces, but we feel as though especially we can model great knowledge in Arctic operations, and we can help the state defense forces and the National Guard in other states understand.
So how do you see, we hear a lot about needing more military presence in the Arctic. How do you see this fitting into that vision?
Well, we know the Department of Defense now has the rose pinned on it to develop a CONOPS, a plan for Arctic operations, and our rural Alaskans, our Alaskan people, well, they're the subject matter experts in living and operating in the Arctic. And so I see eventually our ability to stand up an Arctic Center of Excellence so that we can teach others how to operate well in an Arctic environment.
I want to bring in another viewer question, and this one comes to us from Tara Jolly in Anchorage, and she wants closure on the rape scandal and asks, did the victims get justice? Were perpetrators charged? And how did all that end? Back in 2014 during the election, we heard about people that were sexually assaulted. They didn't feel like their concerns were addressed. So where are we on this?
We have vigorously pursued justice for sexual assault victims, and we are caring for sexual assault victims with wraparound services. And I know that there's not time during this segment, but hopefully in our web segment we can get into all the aspects of care and services that we are delivering.
I guess people just wonder, if you let people go, if they've done bad things and they go unpunished, and because this is so under the wraps, how do we know that this has been addressed?
I can assure you that we have addressed all instances of malfeasance, bad behavior, but we can't discuss it for privacy reasons. And so everybody has the right to privacy, and personnel matters we can't discuss.
But some of us feel a little worried, like for example, there were reports that recruiters in the high schools were doing some very inappropriate things. So, how do we know that this is not going to happen again?
We have to change the culture, and we have to change from a culture of overlooking things and permissivity and the good old boys network to making sure that we have one set of standards and we have processes that are doctrinally based, and that everything we do in the Alaska National Guard is legal and ethical and moral and as transparent as possible and replicatable, and that is known by everyone.
I understand that the governor wants his own checks and balance on this.
Absolutely, and the governor has requested that we stand up a hotline, and so there is now a live hotline, the governor's hotline. That
we have the number posted on the screen.
Terrific. And anyone with any concerns about the leadership climate or activities or anything to do with the Alaska National Guard, I urge you to make that call, and it goes straight to a senior assistant to the governor.
So, as someone who's head of the Guard, how do you feel about having the governor looking over your shoulder in this way, potentially?
The governor's my commander-in-chief, and he's not looking over my shoulder. He is helping to create the culture of professionalism and respect that our men and women in uniform deserve.
Do you think that having this added channel, this hotline to report suspected corruption or misdeeds is going to make a difference? The people know that's out there?
I think that any opportunity we can give people to communicate their concerns and ask their questions is terrific. Whether it be by Facebook or sending email directly to the Adjutant General, or asking questions of Alaska National Guardsmen who are our family members, our neighbors, and our friends. And I think that's the best way to get a handle. That's the great litmus test of how we're doing in our efforts to reboot, refit, and reform is, don't take my word for it. Find a National Guardsman and ask them the question.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I think a lot of people are curious about this. Marijuana use is now legal in Alaska, but federal laws make it illegal. How's the Guard going to deal with this?
Well, our laws, our rules for operating haven't changed one bit, and every person who wears the uniform is under the federal regulations for drug use, and that means no marijuana use, not now, not ever. And so it's a matter of communication and education. and making sure that everyone in the force understands that our rules haven't changed.
All right, well, we are out of time, but want to thank you, Adjutant General Laurie Hummel. But we are going to continue our conversation on the web, and we'll have more details on how the Guard is going to try to create this climate of ethics and healthy values. And just ahead, one Fairbanks man's attitude of gratitude gains momentum. His prescription, a thank you card a day, keeps the negativity away.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialists in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska 277-2777 or in the Valley 373-8627 and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
They feel alone, that if they did end their life, no one would care. And that's where you come in.
I didn't think it was my place to step in, but I did. And I told them that I cared. And I'd be heartbroken if they died.
You could save a life, no experience necessary. For support, go to StopSuicideAlaska.org.
The only wrong thing to say is to say nothing at all.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Congratulations to KTVA 11 News, winners of 9 Goldie Awards from the Alaska Broadcasters Association. KTVA is there when news happens, from this summer's devastating Sockeye Fire to investigative research, honored for groundbreaking coverage of Alaska sports, from Seward to Nome, delivered by Alaska's finest sportscaster, and recognized for creating new frontiers. KTVA 11 News is there when news happens. Be there.
The Christmas season isn't over yet, not for worshipers in the Russian Orthodox Church, who begin celebrating on January 7th, the birth of Christ according to the Julian calendar. Well, next week, we'll take a look at the festivities, some that are a unique blend of European and Alaska Native traditions. And we'll also take you to St. Tikhon Church, nestled on the Anchorage hillside.
No other Orthodox church is frescoed in Alaska.
From the icons to the frescoes, the interiors of this Russian Orthodox parish are a feast for the eyes. Father Daniel Andrewjuk lovingly oversaw every detail.
The purpose of frescoes, the purpose of iconography, is to open up to a person this spiritual world.
Next Sunday, we'll explore the frontiers of faith, the meetings of the old world and the new world through the Russian Orthodox religion. Well, do you have a past photo of Russian Christmas to share with us? We are collecting them from around the state. Now, this one comes to us from Trim Nick in Bethel. If you have a photo that you want to share, you can upload them online, and we will use them next week during our show, or post them on my Facebook page. So here we are at the start of 2016. Time to make good on our New Year's resolutions. Well, a Fairbanks man is hoping that more of us will resolve to express more gratitude, and he's launched a project that Sierra Starks is here to tell us about. Happy New Year's. So this project is called Thanks Fairbanks.
That's right. It started as a response to fight off the pessimism that we all feel sometimes. Jeff Welch's fix for the Blues is to send out a thank you card a day, and he's hoping others follow suit.
Oh, this is funny.
So these two about Obama.
The walls of this Fairbanks printing company are branded.
A handful of years ago, we decided that we would dub our lobby the Fortress of Gratitude.
Jeff Welch and his team at Dateline Digital Printing put up blank cards, all with the same phrase lining the top. I'm thankful for.
Cheese.
They let others fill in the blanks.
You've got things from sneeze guards and peanut butter to being cancer-free for a year.
It's called the Thanks Fairbanks Project. Welch says it's been gaining momentum for 3 years.
It's fun to see it grow over time and to see people really get behind the idea of expressing gratitude on purpose.
Saying thank you out loud. Welch says it's a project that has the potential to go beyond Fairbanks.
I am thankful for...
So we brought it to Anchorage. So what are you thankful for?
This trip with my daughter. I've never had a trip with just her.
I'm most thankful for is because my mom and my dad are paying to do this trip to Anchorage.
I am thankful for my family, spending more time with family.
Are you drawing?
I am. It's supposed to be a moose.
So 2015, it's been a long year. Has something happened that you're most thankful for this year?
To be alive. I almost died. I almost died twice.
On his crusade to spread the culture of gratitude, Welch has noticed thankfulness is contagious, but he says keeping the feeling to yourself is a little selfish.
It struck me that if I felt that but wasn't expressing that to the person I felt it toward, that I was kind of stealing that feeling from them, and I didn't want to be that guy.
If you're not ready to shout it from the rooftops, maybe write down your personal message of gratitude and share it. A free smile for 2. Now we'll be sending all of those Thanks Fairbanks cards back to Welch so they can be part of the Wall of Gratitude.
Oh, that's great.
It really is. So what are you thankful for,
Yeah,
Rhonda?
you had me fill one of these out, so I will tell you that mine says Mom and Dad, and my husband Michael, my mom and dad, because as a news person, you see what happens when kids don't get good parenting or parents that are really involved. So for me, that's made a big difference. And of course, my poor suffering husband always putting up with me. What about you?
Support. No, you need the support. I'm thankful for the opportunity to face my own frontiers. Absolutely.
And that's what we get on this show,
exactly.
Right? Well, I want to thank you very much, Sierra. And of course, we are grateful to all of you who join us on this weekly adventure that we call Frontiers. We will see you next week. And as we like to say on this program, may you find your own frontier.